but this was a little bit above our pay grade, our spiritual pay grade, and it was kind of like blew our minds, like taking a little bit too much of something, of
The
some
voltage,
psychological,
the voltage was more
drugs or
than the
something.
wires. The voltage was
Couldn't
more than the
handle.
wires
It
could
blew the
handle.
wires a little bit. So,
In fact, what occurred to me, Rebelli, is that Wednesday morning is the beginning of the movement towards Shabbos. And we are actually, today in particular, we're going to be talking about Shabbos. So in Exodus chapter 20, Psukim 15 and 16, and it's basically, this is the end of the description of the giving of the Ten Commandments, and then Vayomer el Moshe daber ata imanu v'nishme'a v'al yidaber imanu Elohim pen namut. You speak to us, they said to Moses, and we will obey, but let not God speak to us, lest we die. And the Sfat Emet is going to talk about how there's a sense that if you hear the voice of God, or if you're really encountering the divine presence, it can kill you. Basically, there's something so powerful about it that one's spirit can leave one's body, and then the Sfat Emet will talk about how the Torah brings, maintains us, retains, our integrity. It allows us to be, actually to be spiritual inside a material world. So I'm kind of giving the end at the beginning here. That's the conclusion of the Sfat Emet. And so we'll come back to that. For people who want to have the text in front of you, once again, you can go to sefaria.org, click on Chassidut, click on Sfat Emet, Parshat Yitro, section 1, and paragraph number 2. And Sfat Emet is Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh Leib Alter, 1847 to 1905, Ger, Poland. He was the Ger Rebbe, or one of a chain of Ger Rebbes. And you can follow in the Hebrew.
Really, the piece here is going to be talking overall about the effect, the transmission of the 10 statements, the Aseret Dibrots, which is usually mistranslated as the Ten Commandments. The 10 statements.
Right.
Everyone has seen the movie with Charlton Heston coming down with the tablets, and everybody has this image in their mind about what's going on here. But from a spiritual point of view, this singular event, which took place on the 6th, according to Rabbi Yossi, on the 6th day of the Jewish month of Sivan, in the year 2448, after the creation is counted in the Torah, that event, it's tied directly into the creation of the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
It's tied directly into our relationship with the created world. And as we'll point out soon, that the third end of that triangle is Shabbos,
Mm-hmm.
is Shabbat, the Sabbath, the Jewish Sabbath. And as we'll find in really unbelievable, beautiful way, that Shabbos, the creation of the world, and the giving of the 10 statements, the transmission from God to the Jewish people of these 10 statements, the Torah, form a complete triangle. It's all one thing, interrelated. And by understanding a little bit about the relationship here and how they're related intricately, we're going to come away with a beautiful lesson and understanding about what we are doing here in this world right now.
Shabbat klala dechol oraita kula. So in the Holy Zohar it says that the Sabbath includes all of the Torah in it. And another statement, v'chen bagmara hakofer b'Shabbat hedei mumar lekol haTorah. The Gemara says the opposite. but the same, but in the opposite way. That a person who kofar ignores or rejects Shabbat is actually transgressing the entire Torah. Shabbat is one commandment in the Torah, but if so it's basically the same idea that Shabbat is the entire Torah. The whole entire Torah is in Shabbat. Ki kabbalat Torah v'aseret dibrot haya kiyum kol haolam, because the receiving of the Torah and the 10 utterances or statements, we're not going to say the 10 commandments because it's a mistranslation. But how about instead of saying that, I'll just say aseret dibrot, and everybody will know what we're talking about. So aseret dibrot, haya kiyum kol haolam, was the existence, allowed the existence of the entire world.
It sustains its energy. The energy of those 10 utterances
sustain the whole,
have the power of sustaining creation.
Understood. We're meaning the natural world, meaning the physical world, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the point being that without this spiritual transmission of 10 specific ideas, the reason for the existence of the physical world fades away.
Understood.
They're complete. That's the connection. They need each other.
Yeah. It's like a profound linking of the spiritual and the material, as opposed to there's a lot of schools of thought that say that there's no connection. These two different entities. You have the physical world, you have the spiritual world, but here we're saying the opposite. They're interconnected, and the giving of the Torah is that linking, that connection.
It's the revelation of that linking.
כמו שאמרו חז"ל, השישי וכולי. Why don't you explain that one?
Oh, okay. Very quick.
As Chazal said, the sixth day. And you'll explain it.
Right. Very quickly, because again, Reb Ruvain picked the Sfas Emes, which we love the Sfas Emes, but one thing about the Sfas Emes is that almost every word or every 2 words he wrote very cryptically. He assumes that you have a lot of background, and you can pick out the sources, and each word, we could speak for a couple of hours about. But very quickly, at the very beginning of the creation story, you have, and God created this, day 3, and God created this, day 4. When it comes to the 6th day, the end of the 6th day, it says, it uses the definite article in Hebrew, which is the letter Hey, the 6th day. The 6th day. So the sages point out that it's referring to the important 6th day, as I described before, of the month of Sivan, 2,448 years later than the first 6 days. It's a reference to the giving of the Torah on Har Sinai, on Mount Sinai. So Yom HaShishi is right there. We see this relationship, this connection, this linkage, as you said, right here in the beginning of the Torah. It's there's a remez, there's a hint to this linkage. Yom HaShishi of creation, and Shabbos connected to the 6th day of the month of Sivan, the giving of the Torah.
Which is incidentally, just to say, is the holiday of Shavuot. So
yes,
right, so we're So we continue. Thank you, Rebelli. כמו שאמר מורי זקני זיכרונו לברכה, as my teacher, an elder, may his memory be of blessing,
he's referencing his grandfather, the Chidushei Harem.
Said, Ki aseret hadibrot, we know what that is, 10 statements, neged 10 ma'amarot, parallels the 10 utterances with which God creates the world. So there's the 6 days of creation. God says, let there be 10 times. Technically, God says it 9 times, but the word Bereshit is considered the 10th time. So you have these 10 utterances when God says, let there be light, let there be grass, let there be, etc. And for 10 times. And those 10 utterances parallel the 10 dibrot of the giving of the Torah. And that is another connection between those 2 events. וכמו האדם שנכנס בו מקודם יצר הרע ואחר כך בא יצר הטוב שהוא תיקונו, and just like with a person, he's here talking about the human experience, that first we have the evil inclination or the inclination to, just to make the word evil a little bit more open, the tendency to chaos, to breakdown, to crisis, etc. And then comes the good inclination to fix that, right?
Just very quickly to clarify, because according to our tradition, at birth we are born with an inclination. A baby is selfish. A baby, and even a little toddler, if you take the toy away, he'll bop the other toddler over the head. Basically, a child is born narcissistic and selfish and a little bit out of control.
That's right.
And according to the sages, at the bar mitzvah age, or bas mitzvah age, at the age of 12 for a girl or 13 for a boy, they start to mature and start to realize that there's things in the world and other people in the world.
Right.
That we call that the Yetzer Tov, the inclination to sort of be empathetic and compassionate. That sort of comes in adolescence.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that, so he's pointing out that we see in the human condition, as you stated beautifully, that we see this as well. We see that, and he'll parallel it to the creation of the world as well. First, there's chaos,
right?
A state of chaos in the human condition,
right?
And through chinuch, through education, through good parenting,
through Torah,
good teaching,
through
the teachings of the Torah, which we can over time, where we get assimilated into our personalities. Then we say the good inclination enters.
That's right.
A state of order.
Comes to bring order. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. וכמו מקודם תוהו ובוהו וכולי, כן היה 10 מאמרות, 10 מאמרות קרובים אל הטבע. So just like in the human experience that you just explained, also in nature itself, creation in the beginning was tohu vavohu, was chaos. And then the 10 utterances, they come in, God's 10 utterances of creation come in and order nature into the order of nature that we have right now. So that's the parallel. We have it in the human experience. We have it in the creation of the biological world. עד שהיה 10 הדיברות להתחדש ולתקן חיות של העולם. Until the 10 asert dibot, the 10 statements at the time of revelation come and order or bring a correction. They correct the life of the world, of nature. כנ"ל להיות נגלה ומבורר, כי רק ממנו יתברך בכוח התורה. As we explained before, for Hashem, from Hashem to be revealed and to be clarified, because only from the Creator may the blessed Creator, with the power of revelation of Torah. So
this is another saying of the sages, that when it says Bereshis, the first word of the whole Chumash, of the whole Bible, is Bereshis, and there are many plays on words that are brought out by the Chazal, by the sages, about this word Bereshis, and one of them is that base means two. So Bereshis, the world was created for the sake of two entities. One is the Jewish people, and the other is the Torah. And they bring proof texts, racist to us, or whatever. There are the proof texts that we see the word racist related to Torah, and we see the word racist related to the Jewish people. So the world was created for the sake of the Jewish people, and the Torah, which when the Torah joins with the Jewish people,
right,
creates a situation whereby the reason for the creation of the world becomes revealed
to everybody, to the
to
world.
everyone and to the universe.
Right. So he's focusing here a little bit about the role of the Jewish people in the world. And as we'll see later, it's to bring spirituality into materiality, to have that integration. So let's continue, and we'll let this Sfat Emet talk for himself. And it's brought in the sources that the Torah has brought back the souls of Israel that have left their bodies. Parchu means flown away during the giving of the 10 of the Aseret Dibrot. And that is a pasuk that I brought there, that they said we were going to die. We don't want to hear God's voice anymore because our souls are leaving our bodies, where this is too much for us.
But this was a little bit above our pay grade, our spiritual pay grade, and it was kind of like blew our minds, like taking a little bit too much of something, of some psychological,
the voltage was more than the wires. The voltage was more than the wires.
Blew the wires a little bit, so to speak, and the Jewish people were like, whoa. Okay, that blew our minds a little bit too much. Moshe, and they said to the leader, Moses, said, look, you seem to be okay. You seem to be able to handle it. You're like a special person. So you let God, you receive it directly, and then you transmit it to us.
Right, and then Moshe goes up the mountain, and Torah Hashem v'chule meshivat nefesh v'chule ein shem b'midrash. So the Midrash says, that the Torah of Hashem is brings back, resuscitates, the soul,
revives.
Yeah. So v'hainu she'atorah hi ha'etzah litlabesh chiyut Hashem yitbarach toch ma'asim gashmiyim gam ken. And that is, from here we learn, thus the Torah gives us the methodology, as he said, to bring the life force of the blessed name, right, the Holy One, into material life. Gamken.
Yeah, so this is the key. This is, as you stated at the very beginning, Reb Ruvain, this is the key phrase of the Sfas Emes here. This is the key. Because prior to the giving of the Torah, there was spirituality. There were spiritual people. There were the forefathers and the tribes. There was a sense of spirituality. There was a knowledge of God, a relationship with God. Yeah. But there was spirituality, and there was physical, and there was the physical world. They weren't meshed.
Yeah.
In other words, by the Avos, they kept the mitzvahs, but they didn't keep them in the physical sense.
Yeah.
They weren't putting on physical leather as the tefillin. They weren't doing that. They were wearing tefillin in their minds.
Yeah.
Right? They understood what tefillin do.
Right.
And they could make those connections, but they couldn't bring it down
into the world. It was more of an intuitive kind of.
Yeah, it was an idea.
It was a contemplative place. It wasn't a physicalized embodied.
Right. Place. But this idea that you could bring God down into physical stuff, that's the chiddush of Matan Torah, which is an unbelievable thing.
Mm-hmm. Of the giving of the Torah. שיוכל האדם להידבק בו יתברך אף בעולם הזה. So such that a person can cleave to God, can unify with God even in this world, meaning this material world. וזהו משיבת נפש, לשוב הנפש, להיות מקושר בשורש חיות שלו. And this is what the word משיבת נפש means from the pasuk, which is related to the Shabbat, right? This is a pasuk he brought before from the Midrash. וזה שמע תורת השם משיבת נפש וכו', it's from the Midrash. So he says, what does it mean, Meshivat Nefesh, the recitation? How did you translate that?
Revival or renewal.
Revival of the soul, right. So that's what that word means in the Midrash. Lashuva nefesh yot mekushar bashorish, for the soul to reconnect with the source of its life force. Ki nefesh madrigat tachtona, because the nefesh, the soul, is the lowest. The word nefesh in particular, and here he's referring. Well, let me read the rest of the sentence. So in so nefesh, the word nefesh is the lowest level of soul, as it says in the Zohar, the Holy Zohar, that we have at least three. There's five, but here is bringing three: naran, nefesh, ruach, neshama. So those are the three lower levels of the soul. It's nefesh, then we have ruach, then we have neshama. And so he's pointing out that here, particularly, we're not talking like soul in general. We're talking specifically about the lowest level of the soul, which is the way the soul manifests in material life, in nature, right? So we're not worried about ruach and neshama. Those are higher levels of the soul that already have an innate connection, you could say, to the source. But we really want the full soul, including the physicality, the soul that animates physical life, to be connected to its source. Vehu mamash bechinat Shabbat, dekatuv beinafash, and this is really what Shabbat is all about, as it's written about Shabbat, Shabbat veinafash.
Right. So very quickly, another clarification here. Not in in the fourth commandment, which talks about Shabbos, the fourth utterance. Later on in the Chumash, in Kisisa, it talks in a few places about Shabbos. Later on in another parsha, it talks about Shabbos, and it says on Shabbos, Shabbat, Vayinofash. There, Rashi says Vayinofash means nach. It's a day of rest. But but look at the word Vayinofash.
Has the word nefesh. Has nefesh in it. So the word nefesh, the point is that it's meaningful, and it's stated both about Shabbat and both about creation, that there's that principle of bringing the source, the godly source, into the material world. Sheyesh aliyah lechol nefashot Yisrael elav yitbarach, because there is potentially all the souls at that physical level of Israel have the potential to rise up to him meaning to God. והיינו שיש נחת רוח להשם יתברך מעבודת בני ישראל, and which thus the people of Israel are able to please the Holy One, blessed be, through their spiritual service. וממילא נמשך חיות מחדש לבחינת נפש כנ"ל. There's a reviving, chiyut mechadash. There's a re-enlivening of the level of nefesh, level of soul, as we have stated before. Kanal. Hinoda shal yedei Shabbat nimshach chiyut limot hachol. And as we know, we see this in the known principle that through Shabbat there is a life force that extends into the days of the week. So the days of the week, you could say the mundane days, the days of dealing with the material world, thus have a connection and a unification with their source, their spiritual source, obviously. Al yedei Shabbat, through the practice of Shabbat. Moshe katuv b'parsha kodemet, as we learned in the previous parsha, in Beshalach. V'nimtza ki Shabbat hu shoresh haTorah, and we find the Shabbat. Therefore, now he's tying it back to the beginning. So this was sort of a long chain of proof that Shabbat is the root of the Torah. Lamshich Chiyut Torah, in order to extend the life force of Torah, b'Maaseh Bereshit, into the creation of the world.
Right. So beautiful. So the question at the end he was raising was, okay, so I get Shabbos. I get how we have Shabbos, but what about the 6 days of the work week? Mm-hmm. Where do they get their life force from? If you're making such a direct connection between the forces of creation and Shabbos, and the ability for the soul to act properly in this world, so it should only be those 24, 25 hours that should work. How do you? But he's saying
about the rest of the week.
So it's saying, like, so on Shabbos is basically what's happening is, you're filling up the tank.
Yeah.
And when you fill up the tank, you've got the gas to go. Now you can go on Sunday. You can drive the car on Sunday, on Monday. Right. Towards the end of the week, you start to run out of the gas.
Yeah.
You got to get back to the station and refill. So the spiritual activity, and again, the spiritual activity, which is actually brought down into physicality on Shabbos, right? We're going to shul, we're praying, we're eating, we're singing, we're doing other activities, Shabbos activities. So it's providing us with the energy to get through the upcoming.
Lest you say, why be spiritual only every seventh day? It's not only every seventh day. You load up on Shabbat, but be spiritual every day. Take it with you. That's the point.
What hits me immediately is just the idea of the realization of this, just the mindfulness, being mindful of this. It's like anything else, we just sort of blunder through our day, running here, running there, doing this, doing that, without really settling our minds and being present and having, contemplating what am I doing, what's happening. So this gives me sort of it's such a helpful meditation to have in mind. If we
I get a sense of that this is the grand design that makes sense in terms of, why am I here? Sometimes life seems, you get into the rut of what we call physical, the physical experience of living in a physical universe. You get into this rut, and there's an appearance of randomness, and the appearance of, especially when, there's a lot of pleasure and there's a lot of beauty in living in the world. I'm not knocking that down at all. And I love a sunset and the sunrise as anybody else. But there's also, you get knocked on the head a lot, and sometimes it feels random. And I think what we're learning here, that it's not random. There's all for a purpose of really reconnecting to a spiritual source. And if you're called spiritually, if you have that opening in yourself of a spiritual source, so this is very encouraging, to know that on any day of the week, right, especially on Shabbos, there's that potential of infusing the spirit into what there's the illusion of randomness, and we can bring spirit, bring meaning, bring coherence, bring understanding, and a sense of a greater, the greater picture of the life that we're living. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being with us, and we will see you again, God willing, next Wednesday around 9 o'clock in the morning. God willing, no promise, around 9 o'clock. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to our channel and like us, only if you really mean it. And we will see you next Wednesday. Shalom for now. Boy says so